going on, guys? Quick update video. Everything looks perfect. Still in the middle of the retest. Everything's tracking perfectly. As far as the movement indicators, everything looks great. No complaints whatsoever. So let's just jump into the video. My head's kind of in a blender right now, so just bear with me. Starting with the macro on AMC. Downtrend from 2017 until you squeeze January 2021. And the equivalent of that in the current cycle would be the downtrend from the June highs, the breakdown in this flag here, this downtrend all the way down to present day. Again, macro fractal break right here, this gap down comparably to the macro fractal break right here. This W pattern that plays out sideways before you actually get into the downtrend. Again, the downtrend, you're just laddering down more or less. So green, more or less a W, same on both sides. The red's a cup. And then the blue, you come down, bounce up, come down, bounce up, come all the way down, curl up towards the end, come all the way down, curl up towards the end, before dropping to the flat portion here, comparably to this, where you have 3 touches on the bottom. From your third touch, you form an uptrend, it breaks you out of the triangle, and you squeeze. So 1, 2, 3 bottoms here, 1, 2, 3 bottoms here. Broke out, and now in the middle of the retest. This looks very, very good. Again, you know what, I'll just show it on the next slide. So the macro is perfect. I want to point this out to the community as a whole, because some of you guys just retail exhaustion seriously got to you, and I need to point this out because it's blatantly obvious, it's blatantly clear. This stock is bullish, very, and here would be the flat portion leading up to the January 2021 squeeze here. So you get the January squeeze, you get a pullback, you get the June squeeze, you get a pullback. What we're looking at right here is a fractal and an uptrend, a macro fractal and an uptrend. This is a bullish chart, so forming higher highs and higher lows. So you have your low point here, all-time lows on AMC. January squeeze, pullback. June squeeze, pullback, and forming a higher low. Again, the flat portion that we're tracking this right now over here. This is playing out the exact same way as we saw back here. All the indicators, the RSI, the gaps, the EMAs, everything. Playing out the exact same way, except we're playing it out on top of the previous flat portion as support. So this is an uptrend, and this is bullish, and the volume profile justifies that as well. So very high volume here on the January squeeze. I'm pretty sure this was all-time high volume on AMC. You get the pullback, low volume, boom again in June, very high volume, and then all this nonsense, this whole pullback here, very, very low volume all the way through. Like volume over here is just thin, barely any volume, very, very dry on the volume profile. So once again, this is a fractal and an uptrend. We're forming higher highs and higher lows. And the volume profile is perfect. This is a bullish move. Bullish stock. Everything looks great. We're about to squeeze again. Absolutely no complaints. So, with that being said, getting into the flat portion of the January 2021 squeeze, this comparably to this. So again, what I'm showing here is this purple box here comparably to this. And again, we're playing this out the exact same way on top of this now as support. So, looking at this on a split screen, up top is January, on the bottom is present day. So when you drop down to the flat portion in both cycles, you're very choppy here at your first bottom, as you are here. I mentioned all the gaps are the same. They are. You have a gap here, a gap here. You have a gap up from this, and a gap up from this. You have 5 peaks in increasing height. Same over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 peaks in increasing height. This played out much faster in the current cycle, and then you get into the final iteration, the W with the tri-peak, which is where we are now. And this is pretty much playing out one-to-one. It's a few more days slower in the current cycle, but we're pretty much at the end of it anyway, so that's pretty much one-to-one. So when you drop down from the 5th point, you get this move in the green, which you do here. This bounced perfectly on this trend. This one broke below it slightly, but still the same thing. You get the gap down to your second bottom, as you do here, gap down to your second bottom, and then gap up into the tri-peak, the 3 blue dots here, all above that trend on both sides. And then from your third peak, you drop down to your third and final bottom on both sides. Very choppy down here. Again, this is where you're fighting for the 20 EMA on the daily. Same in the January cycle as it was here, fighting for the 20 EMA down here. before you get the gap up that we were looking for. Again, this gap up on the court news, I mentioned it would be on a Friday or a Monday after hours of pre-market. On court news, it's exactly what happened. So you get the gap up, and then I said from the gap up, we're going to pull back, and we're going to retest, and that's what we're doing now, and it looks perfect. And I mentioned this in my last video. I'll say it again. The next, when this retest confirms, when we finally confirm this retest and bounce off, we will be gapping up from here, which is right here, and this is the end of the macro. This is the macro break right here, and this is the end. Squeeze. So that's where we are. We're in the middle of this retest. When the retest confirms, we're going to be gapping up. Who knows, maybe we get this play out. I'm not sure. I have to see. It could just straight line, but for now, I'm just going to lean. We're going to get this movement. Should be fast, though. This was only 2 days of price action here, but it looks perfect regardless. So here's zoomed in. Exactly what I just showed you, just zoomed in on the final iteration. The move in the green on both sides. Drop down to your second bottom. You get the gap here to your second bottom as you do here. This was just a straight knife. And then the gap up into the tri-peak. 3 peaks in the blue. 3 peaks in the blue. And then drop down and actually gap down again right there. And right here you gap down to your third bottom. Again, fighting for the 20 EMA here as you were in the January cycle before you get the gap up. And then you pull back into the retest as we are now. So again, this looks absolutely perfect. Now, jumping into the macro support resistance, I've showed this multiple times as well. I updated it. This is roughly the past 10 months of price action on AMC. So you have this descending resistance, and you have this ascending support. So perfect rejection here, perfect rejection here. Again, we got halted here. Broke through slightly here, also halted here. A perfect rejection here, and then another rejection here. Didn't quite make it to the trend, but close enough. And then on the bottom, all 3 bottoms on the daily of the flat portion, 1, 2, and 3, are higher lows. I mentioned as the price action was getting tight here, again, we were fighting for the 20 EMA, that we would be gapping up. And then from the gap up, we would pull back into the retest, play out a W, a symmetrical W. And that is exactly what we're seeing now with a higher leg on the right. So this looks perfect. Volume looks great as well. Very low volume all the way through this. Very high volume breakout. Very low volume retest. Once again, all fractal tracking aside, just looking at this as a technical move, this looks perfect. Picture perfect breakout retest here. It looks amazing. All right, the gaps. January 2021 on the left and current cycle on the right, all 3 of your bottoms, and then the gaps are marked by these flags. All of the gaps are in the exact same spot on both sides. Once again, there are more gaps that I don't have labeled, like the gap here, which you have here. There's more gaps that I don't have labeled just because there would be flags everywhere and it would be a fucking mess. So you have these 3 gap ups in the white, as you see them here, the 2 in the green, as you see it here, 2 gaps down in the final iteration. And then from your second bottom, you get the gap up into the tri-peak, as you see it here. And then you get the final gap down to your third bottom, as we got it here. Again, fighting for the 20 EMA here, both sides, January and the present cycle, this third bottom. This bottoming action here and the uptrend off of it, you're fighting for the 20 EMA. And then you get the gap up, the breakout, and then the retest. And that's where we are now. Looks perfect. EMAs. The EMAs are the same as well. I mentioned that the next time the 20 EMA crossed the 50 to the upside, we would either be already squeezing or about to squeeze. The 20 has crossed the 50 and is sitting above it right now. Again, 20s in the white, 50s in the green. 20s under the 50, you get this wave move on both sides. You get this wave move, higher peak on the right side of the wave. And then you drop down to the final iteration, break below the 50 on both sides. Cross in the middle of the tri-peak as you do here. You cross the middle of the tri-peak and then break below one more time to your third bottom. That's where you're fighting for the 20. And then you get the gap up over the 20 and the 50, and then you pull back to establish support on the 20 and 50 as they're meeting. Again, once the retest confirms, we'll be getting this gap up, and then who knows how this plays out. This could play out slightly differently. Maybe we do get the 2 days, this movement, or maybe we just start straight lining from the gap. But yeah, EMAs are perfect. The gaps are perfect. The RSI is not updated. This is a few days old, but the RSI is perfect. takes forever to make this chart, so I didn't bother updating it, but it is perfect. So again, January on the left, current cycle on the right, all three of your bottoms, in the yellow. You have one break below, oversold, two breaks above, overbought. Over here, same thing, one break below, two breaks above. In the purple, second break below, third break above, second break below, third break above. The red, you get your third break below on both sides. You get the pop off, and then your fourth break below on both sides, both of them at the start of the green and lining up perfectly with your second bottom. From there, you get into the tri-peak where you have 4 and 5 poking through the top, as you see it here, and then your fifth and final break below in the blue, before you get this your sixth break above, which lines up right here at this breakout, and the same thing right here, lining perfectly at the breakout, and then you pull back for the retest. RSI dips back below, overbought on both sides, and then once this confirms, you break above for a seventh time while you're squeezing. I mentioned last time as well, the next time the RSI is in the overbought territory, we will likely be squeezing or have already peaked. So that looks great as well. If you remember me saying that the move, the final iteration, the W at the tri-peak, we're looking for this to play out symmetrically. So you have your second and third bottom, you get the tri-peak in the middle, and over here, your second and third bottom, and the tri-peak in the middle. I mentioned that this is going to play out as a symmetrical move multiple times while we've been in this iteration, and it looks perfect. So again, this is just me showing I was looking for the gap, this gap right here, and then you get the pullback, you confirm, and then you bounce off, gap up, squeeze. Here is the updated chart, and it looks perfect. I threw a couple more boxes on here to show you what I'm talking about, the symmetrical equivalent, this move right here, and this move right here. So it's a very symmetrical move. Second and third bottom, tri-peak is the middle. Get this pop, this pullback, and then you go. You get this pop, this pullback, and then on the right side, obviously, is your squeeze. And then the symmetrical equivalent over here, second, third bottom, tri-peak's the middle. You get this pop, this pullback, and go. Over here, you get this pop, this pullback. Again, waiting for this to confirm. And then from here, we'll be gapping up and squeezing. So that looks very good. So getting into the micro, and before I even go into this, I want to remind everybody that the micro tracking is very difficult to do. It's not easy. Everything is going to look the same. You know, a fractal on an uptrend, it's going to look the same. So this was while I was live. I was tracking this while I was live. Very boring week, by the way. The lives were fun, but very boring week of price action. And I was tracking this. This would be the, I'll zoom in over here and show you what I'm talking about. Where is it? So for the micro now, what we're doing is we're looking at this on the 5-minute, the January move, comparably to the present day move that we have here. So zooming in on this now. That's not the one. This was while I was live, so you get this gap here. This is your gap up, the breakout. You get this crazy wick, as you see it here. You get this W move, which is right here. It's very scrunched though. And then you get the top of the move. From the top of the move, this is where you get into your pullback to confirm the retest. You get your first bottom in the red. You get this pop off, two peaks right here, so 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2, a descending resistance, and then an uptrend. So you got the green line here would be the comparable to this. You get this uptrend, breaks you out of the resistance. Over here, same thing. And then you break below the trend, you gap down to the white line here, which is lower than the green, but higher than the red. So this updated now, and here it is. It looks great still. I have to lean downside here. This is tracked very nicely. There are other scenarios where we're not going to be seeing downside tomorrow, but I'm leaning that we're going to be seeing downside tomorrow. I have no choice but to lean we're seeing downside tomorrow because this is tracking perfectly. So here's just the updated chart now. So you have your first bottom in the red. You get this bounce, this like stair step move, as you see it here, to the green. You get this uptrend. You break below the uptrend, and then you gap down from there. This is your confirmation on the white line. Again, it's not as low as the red, but it's lower than the previous green, and that's what we're looking for now. So I'm assuming this pullback would take us roughly to 460, 460-ish. It could be like 450s, but I would imagine 460 is where we're going to find a bounce if we get this pullback. And another reason why I'm leaning we're getting the pullback is because of this. This is the 1 minute. This is the price action the previous 2 days on AMC. This is a descending triangle, which is a bearish pattern. So it looks like support's meeting resistance very soon. I would not be shocked at all if we see a gap down tomorrow and get the price action that I'm talking about here, coming down to this white line here. I would not be shocked if we got a gap down to this and then spent the day establishing support there. And that is pretty much it for the video. Everything looks great. No complaints whatsoever. The retest is taking a little bit longer than it did in January. It's fine. It's still tracking perfectly. Once again, when this retest confirms, we're going to gap up from it, and then that's the end of the macro. That's the end of the macro from there. Again, confirm the retest as you did over here. I'm assuming we're not going to get this move intraday. It would probably just be a straight line up to the next range. But yeah, the next move we're looking for is a gap up. We just have to finish the retest here, and it looks like we're almost done with that. So everything looks great. Once again, the stock is fucking bullish. There's nothing bearish about the stock at all. I know some people have just conditioned to think that for some reason AMC is not bullish because we've seen nothing but downside since 72. But this is a fractal in an uptrend forming higher highs and higher lows, and the volume profile is beautiful. So with that being said, that's the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and that's it.